You know, Gloria and I wanted to let everyone know how proud we are of how they're stepping up during this crisis. We're going to make our small contribution now. Over the last couple hundred hours, I've been able to convert my computer program, how to play guitar, into a video. So that's coming. But I had to make this little intro because I want to remind you that the buttons aren't going to work. That's my students that are used to using this computer program instead of the video. And I want to let you know that I've added contents menus. One on one side that's about the mundane tuning, learning the chromatic scale, and the other side will have the easy concepts and the tips. So that's all said. I'm done. I'm proud of you for a lot of reasons. I'll see you on the other side.
I've learned a little trick that makes my ear look a lot smarter than it is. When I'm tuning with somebody else, what I do is I lower my pitch on the string that I'm going to tune, and then I know that I have to come higher because honestly, sometimes I don't know if I'm sharp or flat. This way I know I'm always flat, and I'll tune it up to meet that other note. So that's just a little tip from the top for you, and either use it or don't. I hope you never need it. I hope your ear is a lot better than mine. All right, now let's begin to tune together. You're going to now make your tone on your E string match the tone on mine. And again, if you don't know if you're sharp or flat, go flat, because you don't want to break your string if you go too high. Now, if you're turning that string, turning that tuning key and turning that tuning key, and it's not making any difference, you're turning the wrong tuning key. I do that too. All right, what you do is follow the string over the nut and then see which machine it goes into, and then you'll easily know which tuning key you have to turn. And if you should be tuning the wrong one, know that you're in good company. Let's tune that E string. Turn the tuning key to lower the pitch. Then turn it the other way until it matches my note. Then go to the next string by clicking the next button. Easy. We'll do the same thing for your A string, directly below the E string. Turn your tuning key to lower the pitch, then turn it the other way until it matches my note. Then go to the next string. Okay, now we're going to do the same thing for the D string. Just make sure, follow the D string over the nut and make sure you turn in the right tuning key and lower it and then raise it again until it matches mine. You're getting more comfortable with this, right? Hey, you know, you're halfway done and it's getting faster, I'm sure. Now let's do that same thing to the G string, the one right below the D string. Follow it over the nut, make sure you're going to turn the right tuning key and lower the pitch and raise the pitch. All right, right under the G string is the B string, and we're going to do the same exact thing. Lower it and raise it. And then we're going to hit the next button and do the very last string on the guitar. The final string is a high E string, and it tunes the same way. Lower the pitch and raise the pitch. Follow it over the nut and make sure you're turning the right tuning key. I don't think you want to go through this again. Or do you? Hit the next. All right, we've just gone through that whole process because it's important. Okay, here's lesson number 1. Let your strong hand have fun. It already knows how to play guitar. Okay, take off your thinking caps. This is going to be easy. Now, basically, we have 2 hands. One of your hands is going to be moving up and down the neck, playing the chord shapes. The other hand is your fun hand. And your fun hand does the strumming. Now, you've been practicing your strumming your whole life, whether you realize it or not. Every time you played the drums on a desk or on your thigh, you tapping out your favorite beat as you listen to it on the radio. That's all been practice. And we're going to transfer that practice to your guitar. We'll talk more about your fun hand later. Now, let's go on. Click the next. All right, so if the fun hand is going to be playing drums, what's that other hand going to be doing? That one that everyone looks at. It must be famous. And that's why I call it the famous hand. Well, in about 20 seconds, I'm going to show you something that is so cool. It's going to prove to you easy concept number 2. Most chords are easy to learn and master. All right, you don't have to memorize it. Just take my word for it that this diagram is representing a G major chord. We just say G. Now, if I take my second finger off, that makes that G chord into a G minor chord. Let's put it back. And if I were to take my pinky off the number 4 finger, that would make that G chord into a G 7th chord. Now let's put that 4th finger back, and how do you think we'd make a G minor 7th chord? That's right. We just take off the 2nd and 4th fingers, and we have a G minor 7th chord. So now, in theory at least, you know how to play every G, not every G chord, you know how to play a G chord in one place on the neck, and you know how to play a G 7th chord at one place in the neck, and a G minor chord one place in the neck, and a G minor 7th chord at one place on the neck. And wait till you hear guitar. Easy concept number 3. It took a long time for some of us guitar players to learn easy concept number 3. And that is, when you learn a guitar chord shape, you get the other 11 free. Because chord shapes are movable up and down the neck of your guitar. What I mean by that is, if this is a G chord, and we've established it is, if you move that G chord 1/2 step, that's 1 fret, backwards towards the headstock, that would be a G flat or an F sharp chord, according to what you want to call it. And if you move it 1 backwards again, it's an F chord. And the same rules apply. If you take off your pinky, it's still a 7th, an F 7th this time. Or if you take off your middle finger, it's an F minor. And of course, to make an F minor 7th, you take off your 2nd and 4th, just like you did with the G. So since we learned that G shape, we learned the shape for all the chords. So now, in theory, using concept number 3, we know how to play every chord in its major form. We know how to play every minor chord, that's all 12 minor chords. We know how to play every seventh chord in one position on the neck, and we know how to play every minor seventh chord, at least in theory. But you get the idea that once we learn how to play that G chord, that opened up all the other chords, because we simply move our hand up and down the neck. Now, when do we stop moving that hand? For that, you're going to need a tiny little bit of theory. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the chromatic scale right now. Just know that all our music system uses only 12 notes, and I like to learn them starting with E, which matches the top and bottom strings on the guitar. So those notes are E, F, F sharp G, G sharp A sharp B, C, C sharp D, D sharp E.
I wanted to jump in and give you a little bit more of an explanation on the chromatic scale that's really simple. The chromatic scale is simply the name of the frets. So we tune this first string to open E. The first fret is F. F sharp G, G sharp A sharp B, C, C sharp D, D sharp E, and then it repeats again. F, F sharp G. The chromatic scale just keeps on going over and over again. It loops over and over again. So if you want to use easy concept number 3, you're going to have to learn the chromatic scale, but not today, because I'm going to show you where you have to put your hands. But when I'm not around, you're going to need that chromatic scale in order to do it.
Then hit the chromatic scale practice button. You can go back to those, and I hope you have fun with this. I'm having fun recording it. This is my second try, so I'm not going to kid you about it. Good luck. It's my 5th try. Good luck. Here we go. You ready? Go. E, F, F sharp G, G sharp A sharp B, C, C sharp D, D sharp E. Repeat. E, F, F sharp G, G sharp A sharp B, C, C sharp D, D sharp E. Repeat. E, F, F sharp G, G sharp A sharp B, C, C sharp D, D sharp E. Do it twice. E, F, F sharp G, G sharp A sharp B, C, C sharp D, D sharp E, F, F sharp G, G sharp A sharp B, C, C sharp D, D sharp B. Twice again. E, F, F sharp G, G sharp A sharp B, C, C sharp D, D sharp E, F, F sharp G, G sharp A sharp B, C, C sharp D, D sharp E. A few days of repeating that to yourself while you're online or in the restroom, and you're not only going to learn this, you're going to attract attention to yourself. All right, we're going to practice the chromatic scale using flats this time. There is no F flat and there is no C flat. Everything else has a flat. And we're going to do it in tempo again. I'm going to press that metronome button and we're going to recite them off together. So here we go. Go. E, F, G flat G, A flat A, B flat B, C, D flat D, E flat E. Again. E, F, G flat G, A flat A, B flat B, C, D flat D, E flat E. Again. E, F, G flat G, A flat A, B flat B, C, D flat D, E flat E. Twice. E, F, G flat G, A flat A, B flat B, C, D flat D, E flat E, F, G flat G, A flat A, B flat B, C, D flat D, E flat E. Twice again. E, F, G flat G, A flat A, B flat B, C, D flat D, E flat E, F, G flat G, A flat A, B flat B, C, D flat D, E flat E. Whew! Good job. All right, now, for all of you that think that you didn't learn these three concepts yet, I'm going to show you. You didn't have to. We're going to learn them in this song, let me tell you. It's easy, and it's a cool sounding song. So if this is the first song you've ever learned how to play, you can show your friends, and they're going to be thinking that you've been playing for some time. And you're probably sitting there thinking, Joe, you're out of your mind. There's no way in the world I'm going to learn how to play this tune. Yes, you are. The chords made with one finger, and every one of those little bass lines and everything, it's just one other finger. And it's the same finger over and over and over again. All right, long before we had a guitar in our hand, we were clapping. And we're going to use that practice right now. Hold that famous hand, palm up. It's not going to do anything but sit there. And with your fun hand in the shape of the OK sign, clap in tempo. Hear me? When you can clap along in tempo like that, you're ready to go to the next step. But if you need to click that repeat button, I understand, because it's not easy, is it? This is a pretty quick tune. All right, now put your fun hand in the OK sign. You've earned it. And just like you were holding a pick. Hint, hint. All right, and we are going to now tap until we're comfortable with the tempo, just like we did in the first exercise. And then we're going to switch that tap to a takeoff and landing down our palm and up our palm. So it's down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. And when you can do it like that in tempo, let's switch it over to the guitar. Our hand, we're going to tap the very last frets of the guitar to get into tempo. And once we get into tempo, switch over to takeoffs and landings. And again, we're going to take off and land on the strings 2, 3, and 4. But if you do more, it's not the end of the world. Just strum those strings, baby, and have fun. Do this to all your favorite songs. And you'll get better faster. All right, here's our first chord chart. Now, this chord chart is similar to what you'll find on my Jam with Joe website. Now, each mark represents one beat, even though you may strum twice or more in a beat. Now, this song only has 3 chords, A, D, and E. And using the concept Learn 1, Get 11 Free, we'll learn how to hold our famous hand to make the chord shape. And then we just slide our hand up and down the neck to make the other chords. Let's look at the chord diagram that we'll be using. Now, notice chord diagrams always use this string order. The low E, then A, D, G, B, and then the high E. If you count your strings, there's strings number 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1 in that order. That little parenthesis, sideways parenthesis, indicates that you're barring your finger on the 2, 3, and 4 strings using your first finger. Now, the X can mean to mute, which means you don't strum that string, or to muffle, in which case you don't press completely down. So if you accidentally strum it, it won't change the chord. In this case, it won't be the end of the world anyway. It just makes a snazzy chord. Transparent fingers mean that you can use them or not. They're optional notes. And you'll see those throughout my diagram. So that's what that means if you can see through them. No, my fingers aren't crossed because I'm fibbing. My fingers are crossed because I remember how hard it was for me to learn how to push all the strings down with one finger. At first, you can use your number 2 finger to help your number 1 finger bar down on those 2, 3, and 4 strings, at least until you become more comfortable. It's not the end of the world. As you practice, it's going to get very easy to do, but in the beginning, it was hard. So let's not worry about it. We'll use 2 fingers and we'll gang up on those strings, and let's move on with the song. To play this chord, we're going to muffle 1 string with your number 1 finger, and if it accidentally rings out, that's absolutely fine. It just is going to make another chord, but it's a kind of a jazzy little variation of the same chord, so you may even like it better. Never a problem. So we're going to hold the same fret on the number 2, 3, and 4 strings, and we're going to muffle that number 1 string if we can. Let's look at the A major chord. We put our pinky on the 5th fret to name the chord, so we know that 5th fret is the letter A chord, and our first finger lays down on the 2nd fret. Now it's laying on the number 2, 3, and 4. Now, let's look at the D in comparison. Everything looks exactly the same, except that now your finger is laying down on the 7th fret. Now that 7th fret usually has a dot. So that's what's going to make your chord changes faster. Remember that dot. All right, and your pinky, if you were to put it down, would be on the 10th fret this time, and that's a D note. So now let's look at the 3rd chord is an E chord. It's just using the chromatic scale, D, D sharp, E. It's just 2 frets up. So our first finger is laying down on the 9th fret. Now some guitars have a dot on the 9th fret. Some have one on the 10th. So some don't have one at all. So go figure, I don't know. But you're going to have to learn your own guitar, and the easy way to learn it if it doesn't have a dot on the 9th fret is you're 2 frets up from the D chord. Okay? So basically, to play the song, we're going to start off with our first finger on the 2nd fret for the A chord, and then when it's time to go to the D, we're going to move it to the 7th fret. And then we're going to move it back to the 2nd fret for the A chord again. And then we're going to move it to the 9th fret for the E chord. And then we're going to move it back to the 7th fret for the D chord. And then we're going to move it back to the 2nd fret for the A chord. And then we're going to start from the very beginning and do it all over again. All right, now here's tip number 1. No matter what, your fun hand never stops. No matter what happens with your famous hand, your fun hand keeps the tempo for those that were already tapping their feet. Otherwise, the song is over. Our first breakdown of this progression demonstrates how to keep the tempo with your fun hand while muffling with your famous hand, and then coming back into the chord progression with your famous hand on beat and in tempo. Now, if that sounds confusing or hard, it isn't. It's really easy. And it happens to be a really easy way to make one-finger guitar playing sound really snazzy. Listen to this. All right, that doesn't sound exactly like what you're hoping to be playing in a few minutes and what you will be playing in a few minutes. But it's showing us the fundamental, that the fun hand keeps on strumming. And it also reminds us to think about the basics. When we can't get to the chord in time, when we can't remember the chord, keep the strumming going until you can join back in again. And we're going to use that technique. So let's listen again, and I'll give you my thoughts on it, and then you'll join in. So now what's your famous hand going to do? Not a lot. It's going to basically muffle for 3 of the beats, and on the one beat, the one and beat, the down up beats, it's going to actually push down on the 2nd fret of the 2, 3, and 4 strings, letting them ring out. And I'll give you a little tip. If you notice that my thumb is on the back of the neck, a little to the left of my first finger, and I'm using my wrist and my hand to pivot that 2nd finger into the fretboard, and I'm actually rolling that first finger a little bit, just a little roll towards the fret, and that's what makes it ring out. That's when I give it that little extra pressure, and then I ease off on the roll and I ease off on the string, and I'm back to the muffle. So listen to it. There you go. 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4. See? 2, 3, 4. Okay? Got the hang of what I'm saying? Yeah. Play along with me. Come on, you can do this. Up to D. Back to A. All the way to E. A little skip to D. And back to A. And then it starts again. Alright, now if you'd like to practice this a little bit more with me, I set up a little cute little jam thing that you can jam along with me, and I'll play a little lead, you play a little of this. Alright, now we're going to jam, so don't let it throw you. It's going to sound a little different. Let your fun hand have a ball. That's what this is all about, this exercise. Just let your fun hand strum, strum, strum. And let your famous hand join in whenever it can. And that's all you have to do, is strum and muffle and try. You'll be fine. In a couple of sessions, it's going to come really easy. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, go. Keep on playing. Yeah, you got it. This is what I'm going to show you next. All right. Oh, I'm so happy to at least have had a chance to fool around with you in mind. I wish I was there in person. If you want to do this again, I couldn't blame you. But when you're ready, go for the next tip. It's a real easy embellishment. Okay, tip number 2. Transitions make transitioning easier. Sometimes when we're changing chords, it's a little difficult to get into the next chord in time. But if you'll find that adding a little transition makes your famous hand move into the chord a little bit early, and that lets you hit the pocket with the actual chord. Let's see what I'm talking about. This is an easy transition called the slide. Now you can go up or down in the slide. I'm going up because this is a kind of happy tune. So listen to this, and then I'll show you how easy it is to duplicate. Here's the slide. Sounds cool too, right? Okay, now let's see how it's done. All right, far be it from me to make these slide transitions any harder than they are. And they're not hard at all, are they? All you do is simply freeze and slide your famous hand. Your fun hand stays in tempo just like always. Now, less is more. I don't do it every time. And if I'm playing with a band that has another rhythm guitar player, I don't play it at all. But if I'm playing with just another guitar player and he's playing lead or she's playing lead, well, I'll slide all day long. Or if I'm just playing a tune by myself, boy, it snazzes it up a little bit, doesn't it? All right, you're ready to try this. I'm going to click that next button for you. All right, not so fast. These slide transitions are just so simple to get that I think it's time to throw in easy concept number 4, because that's going to really bring you this song, especially to the next level. Now, by now, you know that no matter what, your strong hand is your fun hand, and it's got to keep that beat and tempo. And you also, by now, we're starting to see that you're going to be able to learn these chords. Now, this song certainly demonstrates concept number 3, where you learn one chord, get 11 free. We're only using one chord position for the whole song, even the transitions. And now, easy concept number 4. Know your beginning, middle, and end. Okay, now the focus on the beginning is to get somebody's attention. The first 4 or 5 notes of the song, they pretty much have an idea of where you're going. Now, once you have their attention, the middle of the song keeps their interest. Right? It's going to tell you a story. And then, finally, the last thing people hear is the end. And if you have a nice prepared ending, that's just like the icing on the cake. And if you don't, sometimes it makes a great performance fall right apart. Okay, luckily, these simple slide transitions are a great way to end blues songs, and certainly this song, as well as a lot of rock and roll songs. I also use it to make a dramatic transition when a guitar player is taking like a lead in a rock and roll song or something like that, and when you're going to make that transition and you do that 3 or 4 string slide down, it's really pretty cool, and you'll try it, I hope, as well as you jam with Joe later. Anyway, jam with me now, and it's going to be just a simple A flat, G, and then back to A. Now, if you'll notice, and I don't know how you possibly could have, but if you did, you would have known that I'm plucking first off, and you could be strumming, it doesn't make any difference. The number 2, 3, and 4 strings, the B, G, and D strings. However, for the very last note, I'm moving that strum up 1 string. So I'm doing the number 3, 4, and 5 strings, the G, D, and A strings. So it's 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, 3, 4, 5. Try it. Well, I'll end like that, and I'll let you now go back to jamming. Use this at the end of the songs. When you hear the bass player do that final kind of fancy lead up into the end, that'll remind you that you're not going to just end on a plain old A. You're going to bring that A down to A flat to G and then back up to A and have a smile on your face as big as the Grand Canyon, I hope. Let's do it. All right, a quick reminder to tap along with the tempo until you can get into it, and then change it to a strum and muffle. And once you're ready, join in with me. Here we go. I'll see you on the other side. 1, 2, 3. Okay, now remember, if you're not having fun, look to your fun hand for the help. Let it go crazy. Strum loud. Enjoy yourself. If you can't slide, strum and muffle, baby. Have a ball. And eventually you'll be sliding. One more time. Now, when you're ready, try that slide transition jam. That'll let you do your own slides and transitions, and I'll play a little lead, and then we'll go on to the bonus lesson. All right, let your fun hand have a ball. Get into tempo, and I'll play along with you for the first time, and then I'll switch into lead. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. I'm going to switch over. You take it from here. Is that fun hand smiling? If not, strum and muffle. Then come back in. Right when your strum hand is having fun. Let's do it again. All right, so let's start off slowly, and then we'll get a little quicker. On the 1 beat, we're counting off 4. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. On the even beats, number 2 and 4, we're going to put our third finger down on the 4th fret of the 4th string. So it's open for beat number 1, and then for beat number 2, it's down. Up, down. It never changes. Alright, so try it along with me. 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, I hope you have that. And it's the same thing, of course, for the D chord. So bring your first finger up to the 7th fret. And now you'll be putting your third finger down, still on beats number 2 and 4. And it'll still be 2 frets away from where your number 1 finger is. It's on the 4th string now, and it's on the 9th fret. Try it. And then back to the A. To the 9th, to the 7th, to the 2nd. All right, now hit that practice button and practice along with me. All right, now nothing fancy in the beginning, but as you get more comfortable with this, you're not going to need this track to practice. You're going to be able to do it on your own. So, if you're at the point of strum and muffle, well then strum and muffle, have a ball. And when you can join in by all means. Go up to D, now back to A, up to E, down to D, and back to A. See, you don't need any bass player anymore. Make it your own. Keep that fun hand going, that's all you need to do. Make it your own, come on. Use those slides. There you go. Sometimes it sounds great. Sometimes not so much. I smile either way.
Okay, so this isn't really very difficult either. Not that you can do everything at this moment, maybe. Many of you can, and many of you beginners are muffling along with us, which is honestly just as fun. And you can take your favorite songs and muffle along with them just to get your fun hand in practice. Okay, if there's one thing that you remember out of this whole lesson, it's what's attached to what. Your famous hand is attached to the ear, so whatever note you play that may be wrong might offend the ear. They get over it. But your fun hand, this one, Bella's favorite, is attached to your foot. And if you make a mistake with your fun hand, it screws up your foot. And now it's no longer music. It's practice. So don't make people listen to you. Practice. Let your fun hand have fun. I will tell you that every single time you are white-knuckled and not breathing, it's because you're thinking of your famous hand. You're not thinking of your fun hand. Your famous hand is controlled by your brain, and it knows what to do. Oh yes, I know. Let it. If you just sing out what you want to play in your mind, hey, eventually your famous hand is going to catch up to your fun hand. But keep it music. All right, here's a quick tip. As you get more comfortable with the song, vary your strum target strings. Now, in your mind, you're going to know when you want to go higher in tones and when you want to go lower in tones. And trust me, your fun hand knows just how to take care of that kind of business. So, let your fun hand follow your feelings. Targeting the two high notes of the chord at the beginning and then playing the bass makes it more interesting, don't you think? All right, so where do we go from here? Easy concept number 5. Make it your own. All of this was just to teach you some general concepts, your transitions, your bass little runs, and your fun hand just keeping on no matter what. When I first started making the program, I was playing it just like you've been playing it up to this moment. And from experimenting around, it's evolved, for better or worse. Now I start each session by warming up using this tune, but not always at this tempo. So that's how we improvise. We fool around with the tempo. Easy. With practice, it's pretty easy. So the next time you're going to jam, try changing up one of your familiar tunes by letting your fun hand change the strumming pattern and the tempo. See if you don't make something familiar into something new and fresh, and usually gives me a great smile. So I hope it works for you. Now it's time to get back to the lesson. I hope that this song has demonstrated to you, at least, no matter how far you've come today sitting with us, but I think that at this moment you know that in a few days, if not today already, you're going to be able to do most of what has been shown at this point. So it is something you're going to be able to do, and it's right there. Even if you're just at strum and muffle right now,
you should be smiling as you're doing it, because you know that you're going to be able to press down and roll that finger in and make that sound soon. Let's get back to that lesson. I'll talk all day about it. Tempo changes all the fun hand. We've seen just how important that fun hand is, and that it has to keep on going in order to be music. Now let's concentrate a little bit more on easy concept number 2. Most chords are easy to learn. At least in some positions, they're easy to master. And the others just take practice. And hey, while you're practicing, you'll have a smile on, because until you can do it the right way, you'll at least be muffling and your fun hand will be having fun. And all is good. So let's take a look at the first position that I want to show you. It's not this one. Alright, this is the open E position, and whatever note falls on the E string names that major chord. So in this case it's open, so it's an E chord. Now technically this is the correct way to play it, but technically for our purpose we're going to futz around a little bit with the fingering, and we're going to play it maybe not technically correctly, but we're going to play it technically correctly. Let's change our fingers around to this configuration, and that'll let us slide up the neck. So this is an E chord, and then if we move everything up 1 fret, and we have to take the nut with us, and the way we take the nut with us is by barring our first finger down all the way from string number 1 to string number 6. It's a heavy load, but remember this: if you're targeting your strum, you may not have to push down on the top string or the bottom string, according to where you're strumming. So keep that in mind. It's not quite as difficult to play this chord as it may look. And let's slide it up again, F sharp. We're going to go all the way to A, so it's G, G sharp, A. Now that's the first chord in our progression, and let's use that as our starting point. Alright, now I know it seems like a lot of strings to be pressing down at once, and until you've practiced for maybe an hour, it's going to be. But believe it or not, this is a chord position that you're going to be using a lot. And in about an hour's practice, you're going to be reasonably comfortable with it. In 3 hours practice, you're going to be a pro. So don't go sweating it now. It's really not a big thing. But it's very convenient. This chord slides up and down the neck, and you can make the variations on the chords, the sevenths, the minor sevenths, very simply. Alright, now how do you make that open E position A chord sound full and sweet? Practice. That's the key. It's like everything else with the guitar. It'll get better the more you practice it. Until that time, you're still having fun strumming and muffling. And you'll be surprised at how fast that develops into the chord. So give yourself a break and just let yourself have fun with the strum and muffle. That's always my answer. And you come back to be a better player for it. So we're going to take a look at what I notice, and that is, see my thumb? It's pushing pretty hard against the bottom center of the neck, directly underneath my first finger. That's the first thing I notice. So that's my thumb position. And what that means is when I pivot my wrist, I'm making the force of that leverage action curl all my fingers up.
So if you do that, just put your hands very loosely. You don't have to worry about pushing all the way down on the fretboard. Just put your fingers in the right position on the strings, and then move your wrist up and down, and look what happens. Your technique for your fingers gets better, doesn't it? Your tips now are touching down on the fretboard. That's good technique. That's what makes the sound good, not a bunch of pressure. So you don't have to be Atlas to pull down these strings. Out. All right, so we've kind of got the fundamentals of how the open E position chords are played for the majors. Now, chord variations. Different variations bring on different moods. For example, the minor chord. If you make a major into a minor, it sounds like it'd be sad, doesn't it? Well, it is. Listen to the emotion evoked by a minor chord. Doesn't that just break your heart? You know he ain't talking about winning the lottery. Now, how about a seventh chord? Now, we use seventh chords mostly as transition chords, so it's... You hear that? A seventh chord kind of sounds like it wants to go somewhere else. It kind of sounds like it's a little risque, right? And then you have your minor seventh chords. Now, they're just beautiful chords. They're different than a minor chord. They don't really make you sound sad, right? Now, they don't make you jump for joy. But they're beautiful, right? And they're also easy to play. Let's look at what the difference is. And then I'll give you some time to practice some of these variations, but then we'll go on to a song. So don't spend too much time on this. Now, I've noticed that when I switch from the A chord to the A seventh chord, my elbow is coming a little bit away from my waist, and my hand is staying, my wrist and hand are staying pretty much in the same position, causing a leverage action. And what I am feeling is my thumb is becoming a lever and a wedge, and I'm feeling pressure on my thumb, and I am feeling pressure on my second and third fingers especially. I also notice that they're in better technical shape. Now, again, you don't have to remember all this. Remember, it's going to become second nature. I'm trying to give you a little head start so you'll sound a little better right now when we go to play in a couple of seconds. So, take a couple of seconds, check out the seventh, fool around with it, and then get back to the lesson. Hit that next button. All right, now if I'm going to take that seventh chord and switch it to a minor, little sad chord there, or a minor seventh for that matter, my hand goes back in the original position that we were playing the major chord in. So my thumb is back where it was, which it never really went too far away, back here in the middle of the neck. However, my elbow is back closer to my side again, and I am bending my wrist much more for the minor and even more for the minor seventh. And I'm bending it with the back of my hand going straight out perpendicular from the neck, and it's causing those number 3 and 4 fingers to have beautiful technique on pushing down those strings. So try it, and then we're really going to go on to the next song, okay? Really. All right, now if you're still having trouble with this open E position up on the 5th fret, no worries. This is going to become like second nature in just a couple of days. It's going to be your most frequently used chord position
I wouldn't be surprised anyway if it did become that, because it's so easy to make into minors and sevenths and things of that nature. So you're going to use it a lot. So that means you're going to definitely get a lot of practice. Don't sweat it today. If you have to just strum and muffle and try to come in on the number 1 beat, before you know it, you'll be strumming them all. Okay? And until you are, have fun strumming and muffling and try to come in. Try rolling your wrist towards the body of the guitar. The whole key to making these notes come out right is in your wrist's hand. So search for the position that you have to move your wrist, whether it's towards the body or towards the headstock or away from you or towards you, that makes your fingers go into that little technical correct position, which is where the balls of your fingers, the very tips of your fingers, are touching the strings, and no energy is being wasted anywhere else. If you can only hit the tops of your strings, target strum. If not, if you can only hit the bottom strings, or if you can only play the bottom strings correctly, target strum down there. Who's going to say no? Pick a button down. All right, now even if you have to strum and muffle, let your fun hand practice. All right, now remember to target your strum for the 7th. Is your funny smiling? Take it home. Hey, it's just practice, but you're allowed to have a good time, right? Actually, I did like that open E position A chord to begin with. Now, going to the D or to the E was a bit of a challenge at some times. It would have been nice to have a chord that was right there near that A. And there is. There's a really easy way to play the D chord and the E chord. And I'm going to show it to you right now. It's called the open A position. Now, the open A position looks awfully much like the very first chord that I showed you when we were doing our very first tune. And it does have the same 3 notes. The difference is on the number 5 string, the A string, that's the root of the song, and we are going to play it this time. And that is going to name the chord. So if we want to make a D chord, we have to slide everything up. So we go from A to A sharp to B, C, C sharp, D. And there's our D chord. It's right underneath our open E position A chord. So all we do is we lift up our 2nd and 4th fingers and slide our 3rd finger to make a 2nd bar. We're
going to be using this position a lot too, and usually in either its major or its minor forms, and we'll go into that in a moment. But what I notice about when I play the D chord in this position is that my thumb has shifted. It is no longer underneath the first string, it's a fret towards the headstock, and my third finger is rolling towards the fret on that 7th fret, and it's being assisted by my number 2 finger. Now, my number 2 finger does not feel guilty about abandoning the number 1 finger at all, because the number 1 finger is only pressing down on that one note, the D note on the 5th fret of the 5th string. I'm not going to really be playing any bass, so that number 1 finger, it doesn't need any help to play that note. And my other finger, my number 3 finger, certainly appreciates the assist. My pinky is away. Now, I've seen guitar players have their pinky up. I've had it down. Mine is actually underneath the neck. I'm like using it to help wedge, because I am using my elbow and my wrist to pivot my hand towards that 7th fret with my 3rd finger. So I'm letting that ring out. Now, to make that major chord into a minor chord is, if you notice it, now to make that major chord into a minor chord is, if you notice it, really cool. It's the exact same as when we played the A chord above it. We just move our number 2, 3, and 4 our number 2, 3, and 4 fingers down 1 string, and that makes the open A position minor. And it's really a sad song, but it's very full, right? To make that minor into a minor 7th, you've got it. You just lift up the pinky, and that makes that minor into a minor 7th in the open A position. Now, to make the 7th position in the open A position, there's tongue twisters here for me. You lift up your number 2 finger, as you can see here, and you put your pinky down as shown. So click the next button after you've had a moment to practice with those variations. We're not going to use the variations right now. I will tell you that you're going to use that minor variation a lot, and that the minor 7th has a secret that we're going to talk about later. That 7th one is very cool too. In the beginning, you're not going to remember all of this stuff. Just remember that there's a way to do it, and then you can refer to the cheat sheets. They're easy. And they make the middle of your song interesting. So practice them, enjoy them, and we'll work on them together as we go through the different tunes. So hit the next button when you're ready, and let's go on. So now you have a couple of different ways to play that A chord and the D chord and the E chord and the A7th for that matter. But remember, there's a third way. And that's the open G. Now, we used the open G in the very first tune that we did, the one that we used, the walking bass, and it's a favorite of mine, and it's a great inversion. We name it using whatever is on the G string, though. You didn't know that because I was telling you to use your pinky. And that's the same note. So, now you know. And the only difference between these versions is one is a little bassier. When you use the open A, you're using that little A bassy note, right? So that A string names the chord. My third finger bars down on the number 2, 3, and 4 strings this time. And
for the open G, you use your first finger to bar down on the same frets, and your pinky names the note. So that's it. It's more than you need to know, probably, but maybe not. So that's the difference between the open G and the open A positions. Use the practice this version button to play the tune again, and this time mix it up. Look at the chart. Don't worry about what's going on with the guitar chord charts or the neck of the guitar animations. Now, look at the chord chart and just get used to it. And then when you have it memorized, you don't have to look at anything. And then you can really concentrate on letting your fun hand go. Because again, I tell you, if you're not having fun doing this, it's because you're not letting your fun hand have fun. If you have to strum and muffle, do it. It's only going to be a short time before your brain teaches itself. Go ahead, have fun. If you're not having a good time, it's your fun hand's fault. It's your fault because you're holding it back. It knows what to do. Let it savage those strings. And then go on to the next level, as you always are working on improving your technique. As you practice this more and more, switch up the positions. Keep it interesting for yourself and the listener. Right, now this time, try that convenient open A position. It's easy, isn't it? Again, use some slide transitions. Alright, let your fun hand have a ball, and let's make this one last time your own. Alright, bring it on home. We're going to talk more about this incredible position. But for now, we're going to talk about the open C position because it lets you play the open C seventh position. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Here's the C seventh chord. Now all we do is put our pinky down, but because of that, we can very easily play this up and down the neck. We strum on the numbers 2, 3, 4, and 5 strings as a general rule, although sometimes that open E just fits right in. So let your ear tell you when you make mistakes, and let it be your ear. Let's try playing that 7th chord. Now notice, in the picture on the bottom, that's me playing a G 7th. And the position is not all that different than just playing a normal C, as I am in the top picture. My thumb isn't that much more stressed out. It's really a very simple chord to make, and that's why you're going to love this version of the 7th chord. And you're going to be very happy if you haven't been using it to use it in the future. Alright, so on page 3 we're going to get a little jazzy over here, and we're going to switch to the minor 7th in bar number 2, Okay, so we're going to go back to the A in the open E position on the 5th fret to make the minor 7th. Remember, all you do is you lift your pinky and your middle finger, and you can use your number 2 finger to help you bar down, and isn't that a beautiful chord? Now, to go back to the A, of course, we just simply put back our number 2 and our number 4 fingers. To get to the 7th, we take the 4th finger back up. It's very easy, isn't it? But it sounds so cool. These little changes. All right? Now okay, you're going to go backwards 3 times. And then come back. That is practice. When you let your fun hand have fun, it sounds like this. Okay? That's the difference between music and practice. Your fun hand's having fun. So, don't worry about your famous hand while you're going from D7 to D flat 7 to D7 to D flat 7 to D7. And don't think about D flat 7 Ds. Just think about back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And sing it in your head, even if it's the words back and forth, because it's easy. It's an easy concept. You don't have to worry about D flat 7, D7. I mean, how do you get all those syllables in your head anyway? And then when you come back to the A after that last D7th, you simply slide your number 3 finger up 2 frets, which brings your number 1 finger, of course, back to the 5th, and get back in that A position. But because your number 3 finger stays on the same string, it makes that transition from the D7th to the A a simple slide, and all your fingers fall into place eventually by the time your hand moves up those 2 frets. And I know it may not seem so at first, but it will. With just a little bit of practice. Now, we're going to go from the A to the A7, and you play it however you feel comfortable today. All right? With practice, you're going to play it just the way you want to play it. Then we're going to go back to that open C position to the E7th. Now, the E7th, your 3rd finger's already there. So all you do is you remove the bar, you take your 1st finger and you put it on the number 2 string. Your pinky goes underneath your 3rd finger on the number 3 string. Your number 2 finger is up 1 on the number 4 string. It's like the diagram. You play it a few times and it's a piece of cake. But it's right there. You don't have to move your hand. And that's the key again. Your 3rd finger is the root. And that's on an E note already. So you don't have to move your hand. You see how this is all coming together? When you go from an A in the E position to a D in the A position, you just stay in the same place. And when you go into an E7th in the C position, you're in the same place. It makes it easy, right? No sliding back and forth. It takes a lot of the guesswork out, okay? And that's why people don't have to look while they play guitar, because you're not really moving around that much if you're smart about it, okay? Sometimes, though, you're in versions and you want it to be a little bit more complicated, okay? And we'll get to that. Now, to end this, we go from E7 to the D7th. The A, of course, we're back where we started in the open E position. We're going to leave our 3rd finger right where it is, switch to that E7th, and then back to the A. Before you hit the next button, you may want to fool around by going quite a few times. And that'll get you used to that open C position 7th chord. And since we're going to use so much of it, it's worth the effort. So go ahead, hit the next button when you're ready. I'll wait for you. All right, now don't get white knuckled. We're on the fourth arrangement, and so far so good. This one starts off the same exact way. Okay, and after that A7, this time instead of going to the open C position and playing the D7th and D flat 7th and back and forth, we're going to use the open E position, so we're in the same position, and all we're going to do is we're going to keep our third finger down, we're going to take our second and fourth fingers and lift them up, and then we're just going to slide from fret number 5 to fret number 4 and back and forth and back and forth. Now I am really very much targeting my strums towards the number 4, 3, 2, 1 strings, okay? And it's perfectly fine to hit the number 5, and it's perfectly fine to hit the number 6 strings, okay? But that's what I'm targeting because I'm adding additional interest to the song, okay? And then we're back at the A in the open E position and the 7th, of course. Now the E7th is going to be played exactly like we always did. Our third finger is going to stay just where it was on the 7th fret, and we're going to get into position, that open C position for the 7th, okay? So get your hand there, but then we're going to go from the 7th fret, and instead of going to the 5th fret for the D7th, we're going to make a stop along the way on the number 4 beat. We're going to stop on the E flat 7th for the full beat. But we're going to emphasize it, so we're only going to strum that E flat 7th a downstroke, and then we're going to let it ring out for emphasis, and then we're going to hit that D7th in the normal strumming pattern. So it's going to go like this, all right? Now I'm going to sing out the fret that the root is on, which is my number 3 finger, okay? So it's 7, 7, 7, 6, 5, 7, 7, 7, 6, 5. And then we're back to the open E position for the A, E7th in the open C position, just like you practiced earlier. It's not how you practiced earlier, it's how you should practice now. When I first began this project, it was my goal that you would know how to read a chord chart, or at least know what you were looking at when you saw a chart such as this, and that you would know that there's more than one way that you can play these chords, and that how you did it is up to you. So do what makes you feel good. Let your fun hand have a ball. And I'm going to stop talking, and I'm going to let you play this at whatever level you're at. If it's strum and muffled today, well, then that's what it is today. Join in as you can. I'll see you on the other side. applause in your general direction. Now, no matter what level you're at today, tomorrow you're going to be at another level, and you know it because at every level, when you're thinking, oh my goodness, did I just do that? It's another accomplishment. So welcome to today's. Well, we've gone over a lot of things, and there's so much more to learn. You, me, everyone. And that's half the fun. And we learn a lot of it by practicing, and we teach ourselves. However, easy concept number 6 is something that you should indelibly write in your mind. Don't be a scaredy cat. Don't be afraid to learn new theory. These easy concepts that we've been learning, they're all theory. They're all pretty easy to remember. Let me show you something that most people are really afraid of and how easy it is to do. Let's talk about transpositions. All right, so you're showing your buddy how you can jam in the key of A, and he whips out his harmonica and says, I need you to play it in G. What do? You have to transpose the song into the key of G. Now, how do you do that? I wouldn't tell you if it wasn't easy. Buy one, get 11 free. That works for songs as well as it works for notes. So, if you already know how to play it in the key of A, and you know that you go from the open E position on the 5th fret to directly under it in the open A position for the D, and then that the E is 2 frets up, then you know all you have to do is slide your famous hand to the G position. The next chord is going to be directly under it, and the chord after that is going to be 2 frets up. It's the same thing. Technically, you don't even have to know the chords that you're playing to do it in that method. But to write those chords down for another guitar player that may be walking in, it's easy. Let's go to an odd transposition. Let's take our key of A, and this time we're going to go to D flat. Grabbing our trusty guitar, we know that the A is on the 5th fret of the E string, and we know that there is a D directly underneath it, so there's a flat 1 fret towards the headstock. That is D flat. So we're going to put our first finger on D flat and our second finger on the A. So the first chord that we play is A. And we're going to look, and we know that we want to go to the key of D flat, so the next chord is going to be D flat. And we're going to write that D flat over the A. And then we go back to our original chart, and we see that the next chord is a D chord. Now, we do the same thing. We move our number 2 finger up the neck until it gets to a D note. And while we're moving our number 2 finger up the neck, we're going to keep our number 1 finger in the same position, the same relationship to that number 2 finger. So it just comes along for the ride. And if you know your chromatic scale, this is easy. We find that D note, and that's the original chord. So now we're going to see where our first finger lies, and it lies on a G flat note. Now, if you know your chromatic scale, you know that I'm right. Now, we take our D chords in our new chart, and we change them all to G flat. Now, very quickly, if it was a D 7th chord, we would change them to G flat 7th. If it was a D minor chord, we would change them to D flat minor. So the variation never changes. It's just the name note. Simple. It's not a lot to think about, and it's just 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1 math. So now our final chord on the original is an E chord. We do the same thing. We slide our number 2 finger, the original finger, up to the A note. I'm sorry, to the E note on the guitar, and we keep the same relationship with our number 1 finger, and it's on an A flat note this time. So now we know that every E chord on our chart will be played as A flat instead, and we change our chart, and that's it. That's how you transpose music. And you could do this for notes the same way. So if they were notes on the guitar and you wanted to transpose them, you would just see note for note. You maintain the relationship, and that's the thing. So just maintain your relationships and you'll be fine. And on the guitar, it's pretty easy to maintain your relationships. Let me show you something now on the C chord that is another little bit of theory that you don't have to be afraid of, and it's going to be a big help. A good friend and a very astute businessman once told me that it doesn't matter what your position in life is, you can still search for value. And I told you we were going to come back to this open C position, and here we are. And just like you can get a sale and buy one, get 11 free, with this arrangement of notes, it's buy one, get 23 free. Let me show you what I mean. Look at the notes on the chord. C, E, G, C, E. Now, let's remove our number 3 finger so that the open A is now the deepest tone that we'll be playing, and we'll call that the new root. Beautiful chord, right? It looks awfully much like an A minor 7th in the open A position to me. How about you? When you look at it like this, it is. And there's still a C in it. There's all the same notes, except for now it has also an A root. Now, this is the mysterious relative minor. I know you can't get this concept because everyone has made it so mysterious. But it's not. It's a minor lesson about a major subject. Okay, so when we play a minor 7th, we're also playing most of this, all of the same notes of a major chord. So you have your major and your relative minor. Now, if you ever want to know a quick way to know which is which, you put your number 4 finger on the E string of the major, and your first finger will go on its relative minor. So if you put your first finger on C, if you put your pinky on C, your first finger ends up on A, so the relative minor is A minor. Now, it's actually A minor 7th, isn't it? Why they call it the relative minor instead of the relative minor 7th? I don't know. I don't care. It's easy, and what it lets you do is substitute an A minor 7th for a C. And many times vice versa, if not all times. So, a little targeted strumming, a little imagination, and when you're looking for a way to bring the same chord pattern down the neck slowly, this will give you another way to play each major chord by playing a minor 7th. Now, it also helps us to move that open C position up the neck. A lot of guitar players going from A, let's say, in the open E position on the 5th fret, to F, in the open C position have difficulty getting that pinky down in time, and that causes them to have trouble with the number 2 and 3 finger. So if you don't think of it as an F and think of it as going from A to D minor 7th, which is you just take your number 2 finger and 3 finger, move them down one string, and then when you get a chance, you put your pinky where it belongs, or you target your strum so that you're just hitting the 4 strings on the bottom, the number 1, 2, 3, and 4 strings, until you can hit that F. It's a lot easier to make the transition from the A to the F in that way. Well, I thought it was worth mentioning. I've mentioned it. And I know I've mentioned a lot of things that I had no intention of mentioning when I first started this project in January of 2012. It's now May 31st of 2014. And what was going to be a quick lesson on how to read chord charts and 2 ways to play every major, minor, and 7th chord has turned into what it's turned into. And whatever that is, I hope you found some value in it. So let's recap the easy concepts and the tips, and then I'll let you get on with your journey, and I can finally get back to playing some music with mine. I'll look forward to making the jam tracks again. Now the recap. When you let your strong hand, your fun hand, have fun, you'll be making music. If you're not having a good time, it's because your fun hand is not having fun. You are concentrating on your famous hand, and you should not be, because your brain will pick it up automatically in time. Make your fun hand have fun. Most chords are easy to learn and master. You do not have to think about it. They will come with practice. Until you practice them enough, strum and muffle, or strum and work on them. Whatever it takes to practice and get them, don't be afraid of them. And when you learn one chord, you get the other 11 free. You just move your hand up and down the neck to change the name of the chord. When you're playing a song for people, keep it interesting. Make sure that you know how to begin. I always begin with a strum and muffle, and that gets the tempo and my toes tapping. I do not start playing until my toes are tapping, because I don't trust myself to come in like that right on the right tempo. And then in the middle of the tune, I try to keep it interesting, but I always have a set ending. I don't like to be thinking of the ending 3 or 4 seconds before it comes. And more often than not, I play something that just is lackluster, and it takes away from the performance instead of adding to it. I think that an ending is a great way to make people think that a song that might have even been lackluster was a lot better because the ending was cool. So when you find that song that you like to play, learn to improvise. And the way that you improvise is to let your fun hand, again, we come back to the all-important fun hand, change the tempo. A simple change in tempo and strumming pattern makes a ballad into rock and roll or jazz or bluegrass, whatever it is. Your fun hand is in control, and you can improvise by letting your fun hand change the tempo. And don't be afraid to learn theory. Everything is theory, and most of it is easily mastered. You've learned how to do transpositions. You've learned about the relative minors today. You've learned how to tune your guitar. It's the chromatic scale. None of this was really difficult, was it? Now, you don't have it in your long-term memory yet, but it'll come by taking my lesson over and over until you get the things that you didn't get. You're not ready for all of this now. I know it, you know it, and or at least I hope not, because a lot of you I know are going to be better than me, and I hope there's things in here that you found value for. But the next time you take my lesson, you're going to see things that you're more ready to accept now, and you're going to assimilate those into your guitar playing. So let's go through a couple of tips, and then I'll let you get back to your guitar playing. Number one is your front hand never stops strumming. The moment your front hand stops, it's no longer music. The song is over. So I see a lot of great guitar players stop so that they can get their famous hand into position. Forget about it. Muffle and keep your listeners' toes tapping. Now, transitions not only make transitioning easier, they make the song more interesting as well. So you can use a simple slide transition or a seventh, but they have the added bonus of interest as well as making getting to the next chord a little bit easier in many cases. Now, another thing that makes your songs more interesting is when you target the strings with your fun hand. Again, we come back to the fun hand. And when you target the lower tones, maybe you're going to be adding some bass notes, going from string to string. Maybe you go from the fifth string to the fourth string, back to the fifth string, or the fifth string to the sixth string, and back to the fifth string, whatever it is. When you target those strings, you're creating interest and you're changing your song up a little bit. And then when you go to the higher notes, it's almost like playing lead. Vary your chord inversions to keep people's interest during the song's middle especially. So if you're playing the same way over and over again, the same progression over and over and over and over again, it could sound great. Maybe the guitar player is wailing in the background. That's all fine. But I don't think it's as much fun as when you start playing it in one inversion, and then you go to another position to play it, and another position to play it. And when you're having fun, everybody's having fun. Now, I'm going to give you one last tip, and then I'm going to let you go. Tip number 5. Dynamic. Volume, loudness, vary it. When you're playing a song and it's so nice and gentle, and then all of a sudden you get to slam that guitar, you get people's attention. And when you're rocking and rolling, and then all of a sudden you go down to a whisper, you draw your listener in. It's happened to you, I'm sure. Remember this tip, because when you use it, you will draw your audience to you. And my final wish to you is that may all your audiences be drawn to you. Wait. There's something really beautiful I want to show you before I let you go. Make a mistake hardly with the major 7th chord. It is just so pretty. When you look at the open C position, doesn't it look like on strings number 1, 2, 3, and 4, a minor in the open E position, as if you were taking off your number 2 finger? Well, it does to me. And anyway, it is. I'm not going to tell you any more about this chord. It is so pretty. I'm working on a tune right now, and I will invite you to work on your own version of it. I won't give you the tempo of it, and I'll let you make your own. But it goes from that F major 7th in the open C position. My first finger's on the number 5 fret, just for you that don't know your chromatic scale yet, to an B flat major 7th in the open E position. So my number 1 finger is still on the 5th fret. I'll let you fool around with it. I think it's time to learn lead.
Time for bed.
Oh, I was going to teach him how to play lead.
Joe's lesson is over. That will be Joe's other lesson.
All right. Well, look for my lesson on lead playing at joesotherlesson.com. I would love to be saying soon. But I would have said that 2 years and several months ago about this one. I'll see you at jamwithjoe.com. Get on the mailing list and stay in touch.